fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Go, ladies and gentlemen. We are back at it on a Thursday, almost there toward the end of the week. We got a lot to unpack. Playoffs, NFL schedule release, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us part of your day here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Tate's joining us. So much to unpack, so much to really talk about, because we took a lot of the time to evaluate every single one of these schedules that came out. And I got to be honest, there are some of those I like and some of those I'm a little worried about, but I think that's kind of the beauty of the NFL. Because
I looked more on this side of, like, the thing that kind of pissed me off was not just not just the Browns getting any primetime games, because they got zero. Like I know everybody's just like, oh, well, they didn't have very many wins. Well, the Raiders had 4 wins last year, and they had 3 primetime games. I mean, the Giants had 3 primetime games, and they had 4 wins as well. I mean, like, people underestimate and, like, don't realize, like, look at this team. They went back to the Kevin Stefanski system that had success in 2023. They have the same quarterback, an upgraded defense, a way better offense, and they're having a QB controversy. But that's not the thing that's not the only thing that I'm pissed off about. The other thing that I'm pissed off about is the Titans not getting one, because they upgraded their roster drastically, including their quarterback. They didn't get at least one, not even one. But the Buffalo Bills got shorthanded again. Like, yeah, they got 5 primetime games, but none on the biggest schedule or the biggest stage that when it matters. They didn't get any Thanksgiving games. They didn't get any Christmas games. They didn't get any, abroad games. And I feel like the Buffalo Bills, with the MVP and Josh Allen, and, like, how good the Buffalo Bills have been, right now it's just the Cowboys because they're the Cowboys. It's the Eagles because they're the Super Bowl champs. And it's the Kansas City Chiefs because they've been relevant and successful the past 5-6 seasons.
Well, I think a lot of it is marketing purposes, because if you think about it, I mean, Dallas is a very big brand. And, I mean, you could kind of understand where they're coming from with that. Kansas City, I mean, here's what I will talk about. I'll be talking about this after what I got to say on this take, but we got a lot to unpack upon it. But before we get into it, I do want to start off with this, because I watched Golden State, and congrats to the Minnesota Timberwolves for making it into the Western Conference Final. So Anthony Edwards, to me personally, looks the part of face of the league. I mean, he took down 2 legendary players, LeBron James and now Steph Curry. Now, Steph wasn't on the floor, and I think we all understand that. But we could also understand Minnesota, like Chase and I have been talking about, they are having the upbringing of like what the Denver Nuggets had 2 years ago. This is the Minnesota team now that we're starting to see. You've got physicality, you've got perimeter attackers, and you've also got real good, reliable shooters and great coaching. I mean, Chris Finch is putting all of this together, and I think that's what's important. To me, I honestly believe that if Minnesota makes it up to the final, is there truthfully anybody that can stop them, to get in their way? I don't think there is. And I'll be completely honest with you. Denver looks tired in that series against the OKC, because SGA got you the buckets and he got you the shots. Chet Holmgren, I like the kid, but I'll tell you what, he has been doing his absolute best in a series like this because Nikola Jokic is doing literally everything for Denver. The only person, he's first in assists, he's first in points, he's first in rebounds. He's putting the entire team on his shoulders, and Denver looks gashed. And I mean, it sucks, but it does happen. And I think what we're starting to realize is that some of these older teams, and like with Golden State, for instance, because they got eliminated, that roster's old. And this is going to be one of those realities that Golden State really needs to fix up. Okay, and I love Steph Curry, and I like Draymond Green, but eventually these rosters don't last forever. I mean, you moved on from Klay Thompson going to Dallas, and the only thing that I know what could kind of give him a little bit of a break is trading Jonathan Kuminga, because you know what kind of player he is now when Steph is not on the floor. So that makes all the sense in the world. You could get something back in return. But I think a lot of it is you got to get younger. You kind of want to get, one veteran piece. Jimmy Butler is only going to give you as much as he possibly can, but you're going to need to get a little more. But Golden State, I think they realize it. It's hard to move on. It really is. This is always the part that well-respected dynasties, well-respected organizations, it's hard to move off. Did you think it was easy for the New England Patriots to move on from Brady and Belichick? I mean, when Brady left, look at how bad the crash landing was for New England. I mean, Belichick couldn't get the drafting process right. And the other part of it is I think there's a little bit of that you can kind of involve Brady in, because Brady wanted guys that were going to be on the same page. And sometimes that does happen. I mean, go look at Aaron Rodgers when it came to Devontae Adams. If you did not end up running the routes that Aaron Rodgers wants you to run, he's not going to throw to you. Your targets are going to go way down. So, to me, Golden State had such great players, and it was a fun run. It really is. But Steph Curry only has at least a couple more years left of this puppy because, he's been available, only has been injured about a few times in his career, but is the most reliable. But you don't have any other shooters outside of Pods, maybe, that you could build around. And that's the one thing Golden State is going to have to come into reality with. You could hear it in Steve Kerr's voice. And Steve Kerr, I will make this argument. Golden State and Steve Kerr, they still believe in this roster. You could tell. But they're going to need to strive for something different. And Steve Kerr didn't even have any answers without Steph on the floor. But we do understand Jonathan Kuminga is a very good player. If Steph's not on the floor, Kuminga could do a lot more. But when Steph is on the floor, he looks lost. But I think a lot of that is because he deserves to be on a younger team. But why not? I think Kuminga could very much produce from there. But everything that Minnesota showed you with physical perimeter attacks and shots, and then not to mention quality possessions, that's what Minnesota was built to be. That's how championship teams are built. So I think personally, I think Golden State, they are eventually going to have to come to this decision where they're going to have to end up moving on with some pieces. And they're going to have to build younger and get guys that can honestly help them a little more. Because you can't do this forever with Steph and Draymond. And I love Steve Kerr, but there's going to be times where I'm sure people are going to question the coach, but the coach did give you championships. He gave you titles. He gave you he gave you division titles, and made you one of arguably the best teams in the West. What more do you really have to prove? So I think you really got to kind of move on from some pieces from here. But Minnesota looked like a very good team. They looked like an absolute very good team. All right. I know Chase was thinking about this in the back of his head when he found out about, the Vegas Golden Knights eliminated against the Edmonton Oilers. And look, it happens. I'll talk a little bit more about that on the tail end of the show. But I do want to discuss the Edmonton Oilers because here's the thing. Connor McDavid is just an amazing player. And we know in hockey it's a completely different realm because you've got a lot of very good elite scorers. Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, Nathan McKinnon. You got a lot of really good players from there. But it all comes into when you go into the Stanley Cup playoffs, you have to last all 7 games potentially. And that means you're getting checked, you're getting boarded, you're getting shots thrown at your face. Every time when you're the goaltender, you have to block all of them. But the thing is Edmonton looks like a much more experienced team. I go back to the years when Wayne Gretzky, when he ended up getting drafted by Edmonton. And think about this. It was an MJ moment for Wayne Gretzky because the team that got in his way was the New York Islanders. They won 4 straight Stanley Cups. No one has been able to do that in years. So they were just like MJ when it came to the Detroit Pistons. I mean, Isaiah Thomas, Lambier, lots of these other players that were very physical and they knew exactly how to go up against Chicago. And Chicago wasn't even truthfully built like that when MJ first came into the league. In fact, they were lacking a few pieces, and then they also had a coach way before Phil Jackson that didn't implement the triangle offense. But once Scottie Pippen, you start pairing him with MJ, and then you go and get Dennis Rodman and Tony Kukoc and Steve Kerr, you got a lot of really good supportive guys. Okay, you've got supportive cast around you. You've also got a coach. And by the way, the coach before him wasn't terrible, but they wanted a coach that was going to help them to get over the top, and that's what Phil Jackson was. But the Edmonton Oilers, you got to think about this with Wayne Gretzky. I mean, you had Paul Coffey, you had Mark Messier, and you had Grant Furr. And so a lot of this was you had to put the pieces all together. And you needed to have a supportive cast around you, all from the top 4 lines, all the way down, and a very solid defense. Connor McDavid, since he'd been drafted, the team didn't even make the playoffs in the first couple of years in his career. Okay, they looked completely lost. And by the way, you had to deal with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who at times felt like he's either on one or he's just ice cold. They go and get Leon Draisaitl, which is arguably the best duo in hockey, and yet they could not get a supportive cast outside of those two. I mean, now you got Zach Hyman. Now you have at least a couple of other really good players. And what's funny about this is I look at the goaltending of the Edmonton Oilers, and it reminds me so much about a couple teams who have won the Cup that had a really good, solid cast when it came to the playoffs. They may not have looked like that in the regular season, but this is always what I harp about when it comes to the Colorado Avalanche and a couple of other teams who do not have that kind of duo at goaltending. When someone does not have the hot hand, you're screwed throughout the playoffs. It just happens. But Connor McDavid has dealt with so much. I mean, the team getting swept in the first round against the Winnipeg Jets. And not to mention, they lost to the Vegas Golden Knights 2 years ago when the Knights won the Cup. And they were fighting. Not to mention, they were one game away last year against the Florida Panthers, and they lost. I mean, they kept it a great series, no doubt about it. But it's all been living up to the moment because Connor McDavid is a man on a mission. This is a multi-MVP champ, okay? Multiple MVPs, multiple goal scoring, multiple times where he's had over 100 points on his belt. and is arguably, outside of Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin, one of the best current players in the league. You know, sure, you'll sprinkle in some Austin Matthews and Nathan McKinnon and multiple others, but Connor McDavid is at least one of one. And McDavid, much like Wayne Gretzky, when he first came in this league, they have been fighting so hard to get the first cup. They were. It was literal hell. It was purgatory for the Oilers because you had to deal with New York 4 times, and they couldn't even get it done. And then finally, when Gretzky got the cup, it was a sigh of relief. Now, it seemed like the job and the ultimate goal is not so far away anymore. And so Connor McDavid, the Edmonton Oilers, they move on to the Western Conference Final for the second straight year, and it's because he's a man on a mission. It's also, I think he has probably the best supporting cast now that he's ever had in his career, and I think a lot of this is coming together. I think PK Subban said it best when this team was patient, this team was poised, and they did not crack. I mean, you got to think. They went all the way through regulation without scoring a goal until they got into the overtime last night and beat the Golden Knights on their home turf, on their home ice. And a lot of that is because they were without Mark Stone. They were without another key piece. But I'll talk a little bit more about the Golden Knights because, honestly, they put up more of a fight than Toronto. Toronto literally gave up in that game after they lost 6-1 against Florida. It was embarrassing. But there's just something about Edmonton's aura right now that they're on one. And look, I love Connor McDavid. And I really am pulling that he does win his first cup because he has multiple MVPs. He has done everything. Fastest skater, several years. He's done everything in the trophy case except for one goal. And that's the Stanley Cup. Arguably, I don't care what anybody says, one of the hardest trophies in America to win. Outside of the Super Bowl, outside of the World Series, and even outside of the NBA Finals. That is the hardest trophy in America to win. And it's been over 30 years since Canada has even hoisted a cup. Could it be Edmonton's year this year? It's quite possible. But I like the chances, and I love the composure that Edmonton and Connor McDavid are doing. Chase, I mean, to me, it was devastating of my hometown to go down the way they did, but they put up a fight. But at the same time, I mean, am I wrong? Connor McDavid is arguably one of the most prolific players in just in all of sports in general. One of the most prolific athletes. And it's like he's done everything, like by the book. And if he gets this Stanley Cup, he's already noted as a first ballot Hall of Famer. No question. I mean, multiple MVPs, multiple years where he's scored over 100 points. Like, he's done everything in the book. But the only task now in front of him is the Stanley Cup. I mean, he was very close by one game. So, and think about this. Not even the champion Florida Panthers had a Stanley Cup final MVP.
That's
I mean,
true.
how insane is that? That's why I'm like, the team that lost got an MVP out of that final. But it's because it truthfully just reminds you how great Connor McDavid really is. And I mean, he put a lot on the table, but that's why it's like, I feel like this year, if Dallas, if they wrap this series up, and even Winnipeg's been playing with a chip on their shoulder, but look, man, if Toronto loses, we got to be honest.
I predicted the Dallas Star to make it to the finals.
Yeah, and look, I mean,
I did.
I mean, this is the thing, is even they're on a mission because you know that Pete DeBoer cannot afford to lose his chances to getting into the final again.
You want to know what'll be funny? That'll be if they win it all. That'll be the first championship in Dallas since the 90s.
It's Mark Madonna. I mean,
well, yeah.
It's been a long time. I mean, I remember how that Dallas Stars team was, but it's the thing. They're defensive. They're physical. I think the difference between this team and the team that won the cup is because they are so offensively prolific.
Has Dallas won a Stanley Cup?
They have. It was Mark Modano. Because if you look at that team, I think that one was in the 2000s.
So recently, but like it's still funny because like you look at the Dallas teams, like the Mavericks haven't won a championship in a while.
Since 2011,
Cowboys have not won a championship since the 90s. Like the only Texas teams to win championships was the Rangers, the Astros, and
so it was a 98 and 99 season they won the Stanley Cup. So there at the end, yeah. And look, I'm telling you, thank God for YouTube. But if you go and watch that team was physical, and Mark Modano really kind of took that team on his shoulders, and they were really good. Like it identifies their identity because they are a defensive team. They're physical. The problem is that they did not have over-the-top offensive players. I mean, don't get me wrong. I used to love watching it when Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn, it was only them. But once you got Jason Robertson, Wyatt Johnston, and now you have Mikko Rantanen, it's a completely different team now. So they have everything they need of what a championship team looks like. But it just depends. Because, again, I mean, Connor McDavid really desperately wants to get back into the cup, and he wants to win one. It's the same similar upbringing when we watch Wayne Gretzky, because the Islanders winning 4 straight those years, just like the Detroit Pistons beating MJ and the Bulls. I mean, you needed to have the supporting cast. It sucked, but at the end, like it doesn't come that easy. But that's why I think it had to take a few pivotal moves, maybe a new coach, maybe restructuring your offense, your whole line, or even getting defensive players, or even a more competent goaltender. I mean, that team back then with Gretzky, Messier, Coffey, and Furr, that was a tough team in the West.
Yep.
I mean, that was a lot of fun to watch. But I just think that's the kind of upbringing that Connor McDavid has. So now you got Draisaitl, you've got Zach Hyman, and I got to give credit to Stuart Skinner and for Calvin Pickard. They both have been playing really well. It's unfortunate Pickard went down with the injury, but Stuart Skinner really came in at the best time to play playoff hockey. Like that, 2 shutouts, back-to-back games of shutouts, that's impressive.
Yeah, it really is.
Man. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just think it's time for Golden State. The team's just getting older. I mean, you could live on with
rebuild.
I mean, you could live on with Steph, but you're going to need to do something new. I mean, think about that. Look at some of these older rosters. I mean, the Lakers with LeBron, it was old. They needed to get younger from there, but that's why they went and got Luka. I would argue, like, I feel like Milwaukee, right? I mean, because Milwaukee's in a jam. I mean, they're going to have to honestly move on from Giannis. It sucks, but you got a championship. You got something out of it. But now you've got to really...
Don't be shocked if Cleveland picks up Giannis if they let him go.
And you know what? Few teams in my mind that are actually built for the better. The Cavs, I don't care what anybody says. They had a very good year this year. It sucks that they lost in the playoffs. But them, OKC... I mean, I think this is Minnesota's time to win a championship.
Yeah.
I just look at that roster and I'm like,
what NBA teams have never won a championship?
Minnesota has not. And OKC has not.
Are they the only 2?
I think also the Pacers didn't win one.
Damn.
So that's the thing. These younger teams, and I think we're starting to realize this trend. When you have a younger team like that, and this is why we talked about experience is everything. You got to have at least 1, possibly 2 experienced players there on that floor to now collab with a young core supportive group. Because, I mean, you got to think about it. If Houston gets Kevin Durant, that's a very good team. Because now you got Şengün, a supportive cast that gives you buckets, that gives you exactly those shots you need because they lack it, and you can now work with the young core to be defensive and also keep time of possession on your side. They could secure those leads. Houston was not terrible. I mean, that's the one thing you got to like about an up-and-coming brewing team that only needed experience, and now you got to figure it out in the offseason. You got to get somebody. Yep. So, yeah, I mean, it's quite possible. But, yeah, I mean, the Cavs are on the best side. The Pacers are on the best side. OKC's on the really good side of it, and I would argue Houston. But
and Denver, too.
Yeah, well, and see, Denver is, however, it's just been such an interesting year with them. Hiring the coach and the GM. And, I mean, Jokic is just that guy. He's just that player. But they looked gashed. I mean, they looked tired. I mean, it kind of sucks. But what can you do? That's why you got to go and you got to get some supportive casts around. I mean, that's the only way that you're going to honestly figure this out on those rosters. But, yeah, good stuff. I mean, I it's actually kind of funny. I am glad we're doing this show right now because I did kind of teeter with the idea of, well, the schedule release. There's so much we have to break down of it because, I mean, I know what you're feeling. You text me yesterday about the whole thing, and I totally get the frustration. However, though, bullshit. Well, to go back to your point with the Raiders-Chiefs, right? I think this was more pertaining to the Chiefs than it was with the Raiders because it was a Black Friday game, right? I think that was what it was. It was a Black Friday game, I believe. And honestly, nobody was going to pay attention to the Raiders, but because it's the Chiefs in the market, that's the only reason why, and I can understand that. However, there's going to be a bit of primetime fatigue that's going to happen with the Chiefs.
You know what's going to be kind of hilarious?
Primetime games. If that doesn't scream fatigue right there, I don't know what does.
They've got eight primetime games, and normally the record was 5. But if you're technically counting like a Saturday game and like a Friday game because they got the Black Friday game, they got the Brazil game, and then they've got a Saturday game in like late December. If you want to count those as prime time, then yeah, they've got 8. But if you don't, they've got a total of 5 with an international game as well. Yep. But like to me, like I'm going to find it very, very funny if Cleveland ends up having a great season and they go like 11-6 again or 12-5, and they don't have any primetime games, and it's going to make the schedule makers look so stupid because they're like, oh wow, we've got a 12-5 team that's not getting any primetime action.
Well, what I know is, and you can agree with this too, when the schedule releases, when they put these all together, we'll talk more about it after the break. But my only thing is there's a reason that these schedules get made in the positions of where they are in. Because remember, the teams, and I think this happens all the time, the teams that get the early bye week, it's kind of hard because they get the early on and then they have to fight for the rest of the season. Like if you get a bye week in week 5, cross your fingers and good luck. I mean, the Chargers went 11-6 with a bye week at 5, but that's because I know what Jim Harbaugh's deal is in his first year. He's going to turn that around from a 5-12 to an 11-6 team with the roster construction he has. And now they got a bye week in week 12. They're in good shape. But again, the hardest part is they got to deal with their division rivals in the first 3 weeks.
We got to deal with them in the first 2. And then all of the AFC North, basically. We've got, or the NFC North, not the AFC North. We've got the Bengals, Ravens, first 2 games of the season. Yeah. And then we got the Packers, Lions, Vikings, all in a row right there. The Packers, Lions, Vikings. And then after that, I believe it's one other team in there, and then it's the Steelers.
Oh yeah.
Like,
but I think, I can already know on the top of my head the teams I don't trust, truthfully, is the Steelers I don't trust, the Jags I don't trust.
And they all have primetime games.
And well, that's the thing though. But I think, but I don't think they get as much. Only the reason is because I think one of those is because they're trying to showcase their draft pick. They're trying to showcase Travis Hunter up into the screen. I mean, that happens with some of those teams. You may get one that you want to show. I mean, hell, don't the Titans have one? Or no. They don't actually. And yet,
the Titans and the Browns, I believe, were the only two teams in the NFL that did not get a primetime game.
But remember, there is an opportunity where, depending on those quarterbacks, because the quarterback situation for both of them. I mean, if Cam Ward comes out the gate on fire and he puts up rookie of the year numbers, you don't think they're going to flex that in because they want to basically give people a preview of what Cam Ward's all about? Or the same thing when it comes to Shedeur Sanders if he gets the starting job. Like, they're going to want to flex that in because they want to prove to everybody, hey, he can play. So
I mean, they better, because like honestly, like I felt like that was a great reason to have the Browns in the primetime game.
Schedule flexes, and I think we've seen this all the time. They don't occur until you're in between weeks 13 to 18. Truthfully, I think that's right there in that gap. That's when schedule flexes happen. They happen because either a team is on the drop off and there's injuries there, and that's when other teams, when they may slide into that slot. And here's the other thing: there's also teams that I think have a player that we know is jaw drop. He's a rising star. So that's why you want to move it into the slot. Again, these things can be interchangeable, and I think that's why.
I mean, they better. Like, I'm sitting here right now.
I guarantee you. Think about this: if Shedeur Sanders, I guarantee you this, because do you have the Titans? I think the Browns have the Titans this year, don't they?
Yeah, we have the Titans at the Browns. I believe
and what week?
14.
Oh, see, that's perfect. So think about that.
But it's a 1:00 game.
But think about that. Wouldn't that be the one game in that afternoon window that you're now seeing Shedeur and Cam Ward on prime time? Think about that. Because honestly, I would love that only because you watched it in college. These two were going back and forth. Who wouldn't want that on their television?
I mean, that's fair. That's true. But like at that point in time, you'd have to flex somebody out of there. The only way that they flex the Browns into a primetime position is if they're 9-8 by this time, or have like a winning record at this time of the year. If we start off 2-6 with Joe Flacco, and let's say Shedeur Sanders becomes a starting quarterback, and we win 4 or 5 in a row, and become 7-6, there's a possible opportunity that they might put us in prime time. But I looked at the Jags schedule. They got one primetime game on a Monday night and then 2 London games. Like, dude, they got a Monday night football game and we got 0. Like that honestly, I think what it should be is Roger Goodell should make it mandatory to where at least every NFL team in the entire league gets 1 primetime game.
But that's hard because here's the thing though, because if you think about it, that's why Thursday nights were created. That's also too where you have the Sunday night slate. So it's like you can't always. I say this because it is very difficult, and the only reason of that is because you can't. If we're in a perfect world, absolutely you would want to fit everybody in there, but sometimes it doesn't always work like that because
I mean you take one primetime game away from a time zone who's got 5. Yeah, and you give it to one of the Titans and the Browns. Like that gives the Steelers 3 primetime games. The Titans 1 and the Browns 1.
Remember though, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers, those primetime games may get flexed out.
I sure hope so.
Why in the hell would I even want to watch Pittsburgh without a quarterback?
Because it's Pittsburgh. Their history is their history.
Yeah, right.
And it's Mike Tomlin who has never lost.
Okay, give me a break. Honestly, this might sound sideways, but I would rather watch Drake May in New England if they're up and on a hot streak before the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, I'm
You'd rather watch your divisional rivals and the Raiders than you would the Steelers.
Exactly, because Pete Carroll just knows how to be on a television. That's the thing. So
him jogging down the sidelines, going whoa,
chewing on his gum vigorously, like it. Oh, well, with the schedule releases, Chase, I did look at the prices on ticket sales, and listen, let me tell you, especially with our partners up at SeatGeek, I mean, I really am going to be shooting hard for that Denver game, last game of the season. They play Week 18 here in Denver. It's probably going to get cold. We might get a little bit of snow, but the schedule release being out means that is the perfect time to get yourself geared up for NFL season tickets and partnered with our partners at SeatGeek.com. SeatGeek is the most reliable ticketing app that you will ever use during the NFL season, I promise you. Because at that point, you get the most affordable tickets at the most affordable price and at probably the best experience seat that you will sit in the house. I mean, hell, even if you go in early on for your early tailgating party, everybody loves that. But then you get the chance to go inside at the best seat in the house, all because SeatGeek gave you the best recommendations at the best prices for your next event. That's why I love it so much. I love it for concerts. I love it for sporting events. I even love it, too, for comedies, art shows, all of that. And you'll love it, too. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download it on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. In fact, you'll like this. Tim actually texted me, and he asked me about the code because he's going to go to that Bengals game. So I'm like, have at it. Give my gift to you. The promo code, folks, is Snake Sports for $20 off. Check it out before the season starts up, guys, and you do not want to miss out on the opportunities to get the best prices, the best bang for your buck. That's SeatGeek.com, mobile device, Google Play, and the App Store. $20 off by using promo code Snake Sports, and find your seat at SeatGeek today.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Snake Sports Talk Show is sponsored by MuscleTech, with hundreds of supplements and vitamins to choose from, all packed with 100% all-natural proven ingredients. You can be sure that MuscleTech will give you the edge and the boost to train and look like your fit and healthy best, whatever your goals are. Try MuscleTech today and use promo code SNAKESPORTS to save 30% off your purchases.
So the NFL schedule release, Chase and I, we're going to be breaking it down all tomorrow because that does give us enough time to go through all 32 teams of their schedules. We get a chance to break down division winners and their positions. And I truthfully, I really think sounds. Is anybody hearing music up in the background? Or is it just me? What the hell? Why is that? Hold on, let me take a break here real quick to try to see if we could try to fix all this up. Oh, that thought. All right. Can you hear? Can you hear me? All right? Yeah. I don't know what that was. Just random music. All right. I think we got that all figured out. That would weird stuff. Weird stuff. Anyway, what I was saying was before the rude interruption of the music, which I love music, but come on, we're a professional show. Anyway, the schedule releases is always a fun time of year. It always is because, Chase and I tomorrow, we will be breaking down all of the division winners for the AFC and the NFC and gives us a playoff preview for these teams because we get a chance to break down every team based upon their schedule. I mean, that's the thing. So I am curious and I'm interested on how this is honestly going to look like. But the Kansas City Chiefs, they got 8 primetime games. Listen, the NFL knows how to do this, and they've been doing it several times. But my biggest takeaway from this is that I look at Kansas City's schedule, and this looks brutal. It looks brutal already. But I think that's why the NFL, because they're obviously they're a market. So they're going to showcase a lot of these games that we know, like these like especially when you look at, with the recent wins, all that stuff, they're going to want to get the most profitable marketing team on television. But this is what's brutal here. Okay? And I think this is where the Kansas City Chiefs, this is going to tend to be a pushback. So they're starting out in Brazil against the Chargers as a road team. Then you got Philadelphia week 2, and you got the Ravens in week 4, the Lions in week 6, and Buffalo week 9 until you have the bye week at 10, and then you got the Broncos, Cowboys, Texans, Chargers, Broncos, and Raiders. I mean, that's not going to be as simple as most people think it is. The AFC West is continuing to get better and better, and it's a chance for both the Chargers and the Broncos to fight back. Because that's what, I mean, you can't, this always happens with a lot of teams, is that because of stretches of success, there's going to be a year where they're going to feel the fatigue. And I feel like this year, based upon the schedule, they're going to feel that fatigue. They really will. And whether you believe it or not, and I know Kansas City fans will probably push back on that, but that is really tough. It's hard. And I think at the end, Kansas City, they're going to get fatigued because of the amount of primetime games now they got to play. And then not to mention, too, I mean, when I look at this whole schedule from top to bottom, that's not going to be simple. You would have to go home, road, and then you have a 3-game home stretch until you got to go on the road to Buffalo in week 9. And then all of it from there just gets a little bit tougher all the way to the end. But there are some teams that they've got kind of a little bit of leeway in the start of the season, and some not so much. But Kansas City, to me, feels a lot like, in this, the way that the roster construction of it is I don't trust their offensive line. And I think that's why the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Raiders, they all in their division had to beef up on defense because they're trying to gash that offensive line. That's what the Philadelphia Eagles gave you. They gave you that blueprint, and they're rolling with it. So I just truthfully think there's a part in that. Kansas City, I know that they're not going to like it because, especially with humidity. Even Travis Kelce, I was hearing about this on a show where he was on his podcast of New Heights and said if it's humid and it's hot, he's going to be miserable. And that's usually what happens. And you're in the first week. You're on a Friday in international territory, and you got to face your division rival. Not that simple. Not that easy. I think Kansas City, I think they're capable of 10 to 11 wins with this, but you're going to find out very quickly. With that offensive line, the way that it's built right now, time to regulate. Because at the end of it, I don't think Kansas City, they are going to be reigning for very long with the way that I saw this schedule. That is going to be brutal for them. Chase with the news.
This is the hot press.
I disagree.
Really? Well, again, I can understand why, because nobody wants to bet against the Chiefs. I get that. But I'm telling you, you got to play your division rival, and then you got to play the Super Bowl champions the next week. That's not easy. And again, what did we learn from the Philadelphia Eagles in that Super Bowl? You've got to be able to wear out that offensive line. And I don't trust Kansas City's offensive line. I get they got Josh Simmons, but if that
Josh Simmons, who is arguably one of the best left tackles in all football this past year. They've got Humphrey, one of the best centers. They got they ended up re-signing Trey Smith, and then they beefed up the right side of their offensive line. Not to mention they got Jalen Royals, who is a great offensive playmaker that is a very underrated wide receiver who could desperately help this Chiefs wide receiver core. And they got Brighamstool from Clemson as an undrafted free agent that came in. Not to mention, this is a Tom Brady 2.0 situation where everybody was just like, the Patriots are out of it. They don't have it anymore. They've done this. Their schedule's tough, blah, blah, blah. And then what do? Tom Brady shuts up all the haters and comes back even stronger than ever. Patrick Mahomes fired his personal trainer and ended up working out a lot this offseason. Got a brand new haircut, got a brand new look and everything. He is on a revenge tour. He is going to come back stronger than ever. And I do think that the Chiefs are going to go back to the Super Bowl. And I think that they are going to have a 14-3 record this year.
Wow. 14-3?
14-3, or I could see a 13-4. But you know, he's
wearing the villain
off the Patriots vibe, where everybody was just like, yeah, they're out of it. They don't have it anymore. The dynasty's over. You know, their schedule's tough. They get this, they've got that, blah blah blah.
What concerns me is, first of all, everybody knows that offensive line is important for any team. If that offensive line doesn't gel by like initially when you get into the tail end of the season, and I'm sure that they'll figure it out, but if it don't gel, that's going to create problems. And the other thing that I also worry about is their consistent run game. That's the other thing that I'm going to be worried about, because what did the Broncos, the Chargers, and the Raiders do? They fixed their run game. Jim Harbaugh's got a very good backfield now. And look at that offensive line. I mean, it's going to be hard to get pressures up against Justin Herbert, but that's because they also ended up addressing a few of their pass rushers, because they know if there's one way to really knock Patrick Mahomes off of his game, you got to get the pressures. You got to get the pressures, and you also got to be able to eliminate his weapons.
There is one guy in free agency that I do feel like has, some left in the tank, and a lot of people are sitting there thinking like he's done. He has no more left. But like, again, we have seen running backs like Adrian Peterson, Derrick Henry, like so many of them that have gotten injured have a slow start the first year back, and then the very next year they explode off the scene. And that is Nick Chubb. And I've heard that he's been talking with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's been talking with the Bears. He's been talking with 2 other teams. And I know that he wants to come back to the Browns. He has said that several times, but they are ready to move on. And imagine him on the Kansas City Chiefs roster being the Nick Chubb of old. And man, that would be the missing dynamic piece that they have.
It could be. I mean, if you got a tandem like that, it makes it a little bit more favorable.
Kareem Hunt again. Yeah. Anyway, let's get into some news that we have. We have the Minnesota Twins on an 11-game win streak. They have found their mark in the MLB at the moment in time. But for me and you and any other baseball fan knows this, that they are getting hot at the very wrong time. The best time that you need to start getting hot and be on win streaks is right after the All-Star break, when it matters the most.
Yes, and I also know too, because both Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton, they both exited in the game with that collision. Did you see that video?
Yeah, I did not, but I heard about ESPN.
I hope that the two of them, they're good. I mean, because that's going to be important for Minnesota. But remember, we know this about baseball season. It's a very long season. So even if you start a streak early on, that's not going to matter unless you get right into the tail end of the season, and then it matters more when you plug in to the postseason. And I think everybody knows that, because right now, especially in the AL Central, because you're watching with what the Tigers are doing. By the way, how about that resurgence off of Javi Baez? Is that something that, because I feel like that is something that from the manager's spot, they had to spark up really quickly, because otherwise it was going to look like the most horrible contract that the Detroit Tigers even signed. So you get him going. You got your 1 draft pick, Spencer Torkelson, going. He looks a lot better. I think this Detroit team looks very interesting.
It does.
That last year, they beat the Astros, and they moved on, and they even made it an interesting series. So this is a team now that I feel like, because managing experience is important, I also do think those adjustments and their pitching staff is actually something very underrated.
And they've got the best, arguably the best farm system in all of baseball. And I looked at it, and it's absolutely insane. And that's in their AAA system. I think in their in AA, like Cleveland's got them beat a little bit with like guys like Chase DeLauter. The pitcher that they got a few last
Travis
year's draft.
Bazzana.
I forgot what his name was. And then you got Travis Bazzana. Like, we've got some guys that can compete too, but they're in AA, not AAA. But what I'm saying with the Tigers is like, they have not been relevant and good since Jim Leyland left the team back in 2014, 2015. And it's been a very, very long time. And I know that they are due for a breakout year, but this is not the year yet. They are on a streak right now, and they are doing very, very good. But again, Cleveland has had it the past 2 to 3 seasons where we are in the middle of the pack in like third place and everything, and then we get on a hot streak towards the end and we end up finishing in first and pull out of the division. The Tigers are on that streak now early to where they're winning during the beginning of the season and middle of the season, but towards the end of the season, they're going to get tired. They're going to fall off because they're not used to the constant winning like this. They're just not.
Yeah. And here's the thing. We knew with the Tigers, they needed something new because you're already trying to brush off the old from Miguel Cabrera and multiple others. And so, but I think that was also too right after, if I remember correctly, 2014, I think was the last time. But after that, they knew that they needed to dismantle this roster. They needed to start getting younger. And that's why when their prospects like Riley Green and Colt Heath and a couple others, they started to come up. Even Kerry Carpenter has also been somebody a little bit underrated when they.
And then Max Kepler in the minors is looking really good. So
yeah, he's looking really good. So I think this is promising for the Detroit Tigers in a long time. But I love what their rotation is looking like because Jack Flaherty, by the way, coming off of a World Series and he's having a very good start. Tariq Skubal just won the Cy Young last year, and then you got Casey Mize. So there is some promise to this rotation. I don't know how long it may last because we know it's young. It needs to get a little more experience. Mm-hmm. But you can make the argument they could go and get a battery plug-in type of pitcher in the trade deadline. They won't go for a big name. They'll go for somebody that's a little under the radar type that may help them to get a little bit more wins on their belt.
Don't be shocked if they try to go after Clayton Kershaw because I know that he's older.
You know what? That's not bad.
And I know that he's older. The Dodgers are going to want to get rid of him. He's making his season debut this week. So it's going to be interesting. Let's move on to the football side of things. I just read an article yesterday where Roger Goodell met not only with Cleveland, but with Mike DeWine in Ohio to discuss the possibility of getting some mutual funding for the Brook Park Stadium. And Mike DeWine already knows that it's going to not only boost the revenue and economy of Brook Park, it's going to help the economy in the city of Ohio in general. Because not only building the hotels and the restaurants and everything around the stadium, it's going to bring more people in that are going to come from Detroit, Kentucky, Indiana, Pennsylvania, and all of the other states around just to not only just visit Ohio, but maybe even reside here. And they were talking about the possibility of the Brook Park Stadium, and Mike DeWine is fully on board with the stadium in Brook Park.
Yeah, I mean, we had this discussion. Because when you think about the state of Ohio, I know about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. I know about because I'm sure there are certain areas that you tell me for sure that it's like, dude, this is a go-to spot, but it's not. It's not the kind that really sparks the majority of the population's eye. It's just unfortunate, that's just kind of the reality of Ohio. But however, if you do that and you get those parts of those regions in those states, that can help out a little bit with generating with marketing. And at the same time, it could also, because again, what's the two things that we know, that are big, at least around in Cleveland, is the time you go right down to Columbus and you watch Ohio State, and then you've got the Cleveland Browns. Even the Cavs were even coming into a year where they were arguably the best team in the East for a very long time since LeBron left, and at the same time, the Guardians stay relevant. And I think that's really all you got about left. The Blue Jackets have the second salary cap in the NHL for next season. So who knows what they're going to do with that. But I think for the Browns' sake and for NFL and marketing, Roger Goodell is a marketing guy. So he's going to put that all together to where it will make sense and to help out some of those regions, especially when it comes to television rights. Because that's important too.
Yeah, and not to mention the possibility of a Super Bowl coming to Cleveland, since it would be a dome, and it would be the first domed facility outside of basketball that would be in the state of Ohio. And like, I know that the Mayor Bidwell of Cleveland is ticked off because, you know, he put out renderings and solutions for a domed stadium on the lakefront. Well, the lakefront is not a good opportunity or a good place, because you would have to move the stadium inward a little bit, expand around the area, and all it is it's just parking lot. It's just parking lot around the stadium, and then you got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and you got no vendors, you got no hotels, no, you know, anything else that's there. The reason why they want to go to Brook Park is because you've got that space to build everything that you need.
Commercial around. Yes, you have a lot of commercial around you, because because we know this in America, right? What are the two things that we know as Americans really sucker us in? Shopping and eating, right? You get the finest restaurants that are up and in there. You also get some really good shopping centers, and you even have, you know, you're staying at the best in class hotels that you know that are going to be up and around there, because that will help for even for road team fans. They'll come in and they'll book their hotels so that way they're able to make those reservations going in there to go
and by the stadium, like right next to it. They won't have to worry about it, like, because a lot of these teams, when they're coming in downtown, they have to sleep in hotels that are like, you know, 10 minutes away from the stadium. And everybody's acting like the stadium is going to be like on the other side of the United States. No, it's literally a 15-minute drive outside of Cleveland, and it's about 2 miles away from city limits.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. Not at all. People are just up in arms about it. A video has surfaced recently of Tommy Rees, the OC for the Cleveland Browns, talking up Shedeur Sanders, being on a hot mic, and him and Kevin Stefanski are starting to like what they see with Shedeur Sanders. So there is a very high chance we could see him week 1 over Joe Flacco, even though they might, even though they got a little bit of PTSD from the past, they might want to start Flacco for the first few games of the season, just so Shedeur can get his footing in the NFL and learn how it plays before they start him. But he might actually get the start week 1.
But you know what's funny? I was listening to Kyle Hurd this morning, and what he talked about was, and I think this is very true, and I think you know this with Cleveland's history, because Jimmy Haslam mostly will want his quarterbacks he chooses, right? So we talked about this with Johnny Manziel in the past, because that was a Jimmy Haslam thing. The Deshaun Watson thing, that was a Jimmy Haslam thing. And I don't think
this was.
Well, it depends, because here's the thing. Shedeur Sanders is great for marketing purposes, because think about it, jersey sales and like all the rest of it, that's the kind of thing that if you're a marketing type of if you're a marketing mind that's out there and you look at that, right? You're not just thinking about it about the personal stuff. You're thinking about what helps to drive our market, right? Because if people are going to buy these jerseys, there's a reason for it. It's just like an NIL branding, right? Because people are going to want to buy and invest. I mean, hell, we're already getting stock market types of like sports stocks. You know, like you have your regular like NDOW and like all the rest of that, right? The Dow Jones. So there's already apps where they're like stocks, but for sports, for players, for teams. Like, that's the kind of thing. If you're a marketing mind, it's the kind of thing that you want, because it'll put them up and on the map. It'll now increase your ticket sales because he's playing, and that'll increase the jersey sales because he's playing. So to me, that's where I think Jimmy Haslam kind of had a little bit of that mind in there because of marketing purposes. I don't think it was mostly about the draft pick itself. I think it was mostly because you look at it from a marketing standpoint. I mean, like I told everybody off the air, if Johnny Manziel was in the period where the NIL has now been acceptable, he would have never gone to the NFL. He would have just been an NIL legend in college football. Like, he would be getting so much money because of, the jerseys, autographs, all those things. And yet, Texas A&M with the way that they went about it. I mean, that's what started the renovations of Kyle Field. So you got to think. I mean, that's if you got a buying market right there, that's the way that you do it. Now, again, I don't think Johnny Manziel, truthfully, is a player.
No, he doesn't care about the game.
And then the same thing with Deshaun Watson. But I think with Shedeur Sanders, you actually have a better chance. I mean, you think Shedeur said all the best things in the last couple of days. The best things when I watched his interview. He looks completely different. I think the reasoning of that is because you got to get him away from his dad. And if you do that, now you got Shedeur the person, rather than just association with the family. In fact, I even just watched some video clippings of Shiloh in Tampa. And even he looks completely different.
Yeah.
So there is room for improvements for these players. And I think it's clear. But again, marketing purposes, but then at the same time, it's also from the players' build. But I think you'll have a much bigger upside. And I think that's the kind of thing Jimmy Haslam likes. It's because if the player has the upside, how can anybody say anything horrible about Jimmy Haslam at the end of the day?
That, and I think all the players have his back, because I've seen videos where a lot of the vets are coming up and introducing themselves and saying hello to him and like saying thank you for being here, welcome to Cleveland and everything. So a lot of them are liking him, and a lot of the rookies and stuff like love his demeanor and the way that he's going about things, and how he's not being like that cocky, arrogant guy. He's not showing off his like legendary and everything. Like he's just being like even keel, getting to work and like putting his time in. And he's the first one in and the last one to leave. I love it.
Step in the right direction. So
I love it. It's gonna be great to see, because like, you know, you're gonna have to face a tough decision, because if it comes time for the season to start and you've got all of these veteran guys that are clamoring for him to start and like how he is and how he plays ball, they're gonna be like, wow, do we go with Joe Flacco, the guy who took us to the playoffs and had the success, or do we go with the young flashy rookie?
Well, remember though, because I'd say this is the opposite of what Chicago like what they did last year. Because remember, there were guys that were harping to sit out Caleb Williams because they were obviously not in that position, you know, and it was kind of disappointing, but I think we kind of understood that because they don't develop offense very well. I think that was very clear. However, I mean, to me, you would want to see what the kid can do. And a lot of teams know that. That's why I'm like, with rookie quarterbacks, I always give between 6 to 8 weeks, because that's enough time to study a playbook. That's enough time to have those reps with your top dogs. But like I said, I think it was more of bridging purposes. I think the only one that actually helped them out a lot was Carolina, because you needed Bryce Young to take a step back. So in comes Andy Dalton, right? And then he comes in and he gets a couple games where he's producing, and then you bring back in Bryce Young, and now look at how completely different he is.
Yep.
And sometimes you just don't know. It's like a bag of marbles. You just don't know what you're going to get with quarterback.
Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
That's very true, too. And I love chocolates.
Who doesn't?
Oh, yeah. It tastes with
This is the Hot Press.
I was starting to think about this, because I don't think that this is coincidental at all when it comes
Holy cow, you think?
No. I know. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, I was looking at the primetime list, and we got a lot of really good games. I mean, right out the gate in week 1, we have Cowboys and Eagles to start the season off with. We got Chiefs on the road against the Chargers, an international territory, and we got all these other teams that are either facing their division rival, or it's one of those tail of the tape type matchups. Because you got to think, what I like of some of these matchups is because I even looked at some of the other ones that we know of, like, well, they used to know each other up in college. Like, for instance, the Thursday night football game between Minnesota and the Chargers, because you got now J.J. McCarthy, okay, the quarterback successor for Jim Harbaugh, facing Jim Harbaugh.
I mean, did you know that the Chargers are in the Hall of Fame game this year?
They are. And
it's on July 31st.
And you know what? I was talking about that because, to me, I knew you were going to save room for Jim Harbaugh to face against a team out of Michigan. I mean, you knew you were going to have to do that. But the other thing is I also do think that this is a grand gesture to Antonio Gates going into the Hall of Fame. Because they didn't have that. I don't even think they even starred in a Hall of Fame game ever in their history. So to have that, I think is spectacular.
I feel like that's the reason why they choose these certain teams to play in the Hall of Fame game. Because, like, the year that the Browns were in the Hall of Fame game, Joe Thomas was getting inducted into the Hall of Fame that year.
Yeah, Joe Thomas is a great player.
And then Darrelle Revis, because we ended up playing it wasn't the Jets that year. Yep. I don't know who we played that year for the Hall of Fame game, but I do know that they had a player getting inducted into the Hall of Fame as well. So, it very well could, like, that very well could be how they determine who one of the teams are. The other one could just be randomized, but, like, it's crazy that it's on the 31st of July, because it's normally, like, in the first week of August. But, like, in the first week of August, we're right in the preseason football. I'm like, holy, we're not that far away.
You, man. And then not to mention, too, I mean, hell, we've already started rookie mini camps and OTAs. So you got to think. The NFL is coming around full circle very fast.
It is. And they're getting sooner and sooner every year because they're working on trying to add that 18th game in there.
Oh, they are. And it makes you wonder, right? Because I know you probably, just like me, I've watched sports for a very long time since I was a kid. I used to watch the glory days of ESPN. And even, hell, there were times where I was in my middle school, and every morning when I had breakfast and I got ready to go to the bus that was, like, literally miles up a hill, I would watch NFL Network every morning. I'm not even joking you. That was my go-to thing. I loved cartoons. I loved all that. But, man, I lived and breathed football when I was, like, literally.
I didn't start watching the NFL Network, like, religiously until, like, after high school, and I got into college. That's when I started picking it up, and, like, I would sit there and watch it for, like, 8 hours. My wife would be like, what the hell? I'm like, listen, I'm like,
what's funny is I had it on, because my family, we had it on Dish Network. Okay. So we had those premium channels. We had all of that because, too, this was also where the inaugural year of MLB Network came out. I remember that. And my family and I, because we were all baseball minded people for a long time. And when that came out, we were watching, I remember this off the back of my head. I think we were watching Major League Baseball historical stories for like 5 hours straight. I remember sitting there on the couch, and we were literally watching all of this for their inaugural launch of the network. And that was at a time when the Philadelphia Phillies won the World Series in 2008.
Oh, my gosh. I remember that. Can you name all of the World Series winners from 2000 to now?
Well.
Because I can.
Well, 2000. I remember the Yankees won that. And then
the Yankees,
the Diamondbacks, the Angels, the Marlins. Surprisingly, I mean, they were fun.
They had Miggy that year, dude.
Miggy, Josh Beckett, and they even had Pudge. I mean, I loved Ivan.
It's crazy to think that Miggy is a World Series champion.
Not a lot of people even remembered that. Everybody all remembered about the Triple Crown year he had in Detroit.
Yeah, and everybody's just like, oh, it would have been nice to have Miggy get a ring. I'm like, he already has one. What are you talking about?
You know what's funny, too, is I was actually going back, and there was a baseball history. You remember the 4 players out of the Florida Marlins? Okay, name them. There were 4 players that all had 25-plus home runs in the same season. Can you name the 4?
Oh. No, man, it's been a while. So, like what I can tell you for the history of baseball is I can tell you the winners of some of these teams. I can tell you some of their star players, like some of their pitchers, some of their hitters and everything.
Yeah.
The Marlins 03 team is the only one in my head.
Yeah.
That and the 05 White Sox and the 06 Cardinals. Those are the only three teams in all of the MLB history that escape my mind of like who all played on those teams.
But I got to tell you, what was also special about 2003 is we learned about the D Train, Dontrelle Willis.
Yeah.
Remember how fun he was?
Oh, my gosh.
That guy was incredible. He was remarkable. Ooh. Here's the other thing, too. So the 4 that hit 25-plus home runs that year was Dan Uggla, a young Hanley Ramirez, Jorge Cantu, and Mike Jacobs.
Hanley Ramirez? Holy shit.
Yeah, Hanley Ramirez was literally fresh from being traded from Boston's farm system.
Wow.
You got to think, because he originally was drafted by the Boston Red Sox. They traded him for because I know it was a certain player. I can't think of it off the top of my head. They traded for out of Florida at the time, but then he turned around. He was a Silver Slugger in 2009, had arguably the best batting average amongst all of baseball, and he was in a plethora. This was at a time before Mike Stanton came in.
Oh, I remember Mike Stanton. I loved that.
People were harping so much. I remember my father telling me, like, son, you have got to watch Mike Stanton.
That 2014 Marlins team had so much potential. You just needed a manager, and then you had Jeter just scrap everything. Jose Fernandez, Giancarlo Stanton, Jazz Chisholm. You also had freaking Christian Yelich too, and you just scrapped the entire team.
Yeah, even JT Realmuto. They had
my gosh!
They had a lot of these guys, and like I said, I just think. Well, here's the funny thing. I remembered when they rebranded and they became the Miami Marlins, and that year was when they got Heath Bell, they got Mark Burley, and they also got Jose Reyes.
Yeah.
How much that fell off. It was bad. And Jose goes to Toronto. Hanley's going to LA. And by the way, I low-key actually kind of liked watching Hanley a third. I'm not even going to lie to you. I was surprised he didn't get more of that, but he wanted to play his natural position of short.
Yeah, I think once Jose Fernandez passed in that boating accident and everything, like that whole Marlins team, like they just dismantled that whole thing after that.
Off miserably. And yet, they're all about small ball hitting at this point. And that's the one thing I can't understand, but I do like Stowers. I do think he is a very good, promising player. By the way, Jeff Conine's son, he's actually playing very well. But hopefully they'll turn this thing around with their farm system, that they'll get up. Because you know what's funny is, and a small story before I kind of end it, is understanding more of my life, right? My father, my biological father, used to tell me a lot of stories that were all baseball related. He used to tell me stories about, like, there was a time we actually sat down as kids and he would tell me the story about Kirk Gibson because he lived through that, right? He also told me about, he used to harp at me all the time about talking about Dimitri Young.
My dad would talk about Rod Carew.
Oh, Rod Carew was also, he was a fantastic player. And you know what's funny is, nobody can even do this anymore. I think the closest one you can honestly see is low-key
Omar Vizquel.
Jeremy Pena. Have you know he started that way? Yeah. But even Omar Vizquel. And you know what's funny is I remember years ago, and these were friends of mine on the softball field, where we talked about best defensive shortstops, right? What's the first thing that goes to your mind? Is Derek Jeter. But Derek Jeter was not defensive, though. I'll be honest with you. I love the captain, okay? I do. But he was more offensive than anything else. And the thing is that Omar Vizquel, and I'll be honest with you, What about Andrew Simmons? If Simmons didn't have like trouble with the bat, like it's insanity.
I also remember Casey Blake at third and how good he was.
Yeah. Oh God, Casey Blake. You know what's funny? I actually did watch Casey Blake play in person when it was Big League Weekend in Vegas when he was on the Dodgers.
That's awesome.
I remember watching him, Matt Kemp, Andre Ethier, and Russell Martin. And by the way,
oh my gosh,
I actually remember watching Joey Votto and Brandon Phillips when they came into town.
I also miss watching Gary Sheffield with the.
Yep. Oh, I remember the nostalgia was when he was with the Mets and he hit that 500.
Who was his teammate that was with him? It was him and it's some crazy name I'm thinking of. I'm drawing a blank on who he is. I know the player. I know the years that he played. It was like the early to mid 2000s, and it was it wasn't Orlando Cabrera. It was somebody else.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's driving me crazy. But like, I remember him and Gary Sheffield just battling it out with that team and how good they were.
Yeah. Man, just pure nostalgia. I will say this though. I will say this. Kind of a few ending points. Because to me, like, you know how much I love hockey. Okay, and I love the hockey playoffs. And by the way, we'll have a guest on
Maglio.
tomorrow.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but Maglio or Donez, that's who it was.
Maglio or Donez. Oh God, that was he was really good, and well known for that walk-off homer against Houston Street.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Still ain't over that. But the thing is, like, I know my hometown off the back of my head, being there for over 29 years. And the thing is, you know, watching that game last night, and again, I even watched the Toronto Maple Leafs game, and I got to tell you, these two are completely far apart. And the reasoning of that is because the Vegas Golden Knights are going to be back in the playoffs. Okay, I watched this team since the start. Okay, they are so resilient, but they also are ones that they do not give up every single fight. Every time I tune into a Vegas Golden Knight game, they're always in the fight. They never really give up that much. Even with Mark Stone out of the lineup last night, there was no goal until the overtime. And that happens with everybody. But the thing is that what's crazy is, you know what the crazy stat about Adin Hill, what sucks is that the Golden Knights, as close as those games are, right, with Adin Hill, they're 1-2, but Adin Hill saw 79 of those shots, and you know how many he's blocked? 76. They don't play around. And that's the part where I think they understand the knack of talent that they have in front of them. So to me, I really do think that this organization, they're well ran. I mean, I've heard a lot of great things from Bill Foley. Kelly McCrimmon used to give me question marks at times, but I think I understand now what he's doing. I didn't like the Marc-Andre Fleury PR stunt. I didn't like that. I also know that when it came to moving certain pieces, business is business. You kind of have to lump it. But that team is going to continuously still be a problem. Because as long as they have the culture and as long as they have the camaraderie with each other, whether they get new players out of free agency or the draft, they're going to continue to be a threatening force for a long time. And again, it's the difference from when you watched that team last night compared to the Maple Leafs team that just flat out gave up. Craig Berube had nothing to say in that game at all when they lost 6-1 against Florida. They got their asses handed to. And yet, Matthews, Mitch Marner, they were all not on the same page. They looked completely befuddled. It was embarrassing. And because here's what's funny. If you go on and you watch Twitter, look at how much Maple Leafs fans are clowning on their own team. I had one where I was watching this on an intermission, and I think one of the guys posted this up. Somebody posted literally, it looked like millions of Leafs fans with MJ crying emojis on their faces because of how embarrassing that was. But it just tells you, and it's funny, they even had another one with the Spider-Man thing. Okay, because this has been looping around for a long time, and Maple Leafs fans are going to say, how long until the curse is done? You know what I say? Maybe go and get Mike Myers to help you out. Have any of you watched The Love Guru? It worked. It seemed to have worked in the film. Maybe you could work it in real life. But
Did you also catch my video I made about predicting the next 5 Super Bowls and who's going to win?
I don't think I did.
So
this sounds interesting.
I've got the Chiefs winning this year. I got the Vikings winning next year. I've got the Bengals winning the Bengals winning the year after that.
Okay.
I've got the Texans winning the year after that. And then in 2030, I've got the Cleveland Browns winning the Super Bowl.
You really think, what is that? That's 5, right? You really believe 4 of those 5 years are going to be first-time winners?
Yeah.
Wow.
And here was my reasoning behind the Minnesota Vikings, because this is arguably one of the best, if not the best roster that they've ever constructed in their entire history of their franchise.
Yeah.
With how it is, because they do not have a single hole on their roster that needs filled. They've got every position covered. Offensive line is great, getting Donovan Jackson, one of the best guards in the draft, to fix that hole that they were missing on the offensive line was great. And Christian Darrisaw is going to come back off an injury stronger than ever. They got Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson all healthy to start the season. They've got an upgrade at safety, an upgrade at corner and everything, because corner was their biggest need that they had, and they plugged and played that this offseason with the moves that they had. They got Javon Hargrave to pair along with they got another defensive lineman. I forgot who it was, but they got Javon Hargrave along with another defensive lineman and Dallas Turner and just a couple others. And then the only missing piece is JJ McCarthy. And that's why I'm giving him until next year, because if JJ comes out and he balls, and with Kevin O'Connell, I think that offense is going to be where it needs to be. JJ is on a rookie deal. They can still build that team even more that they need. Yep. And I think that, they were just good quarterback play away from winning their first playoff game in years. And I think that they've got a team built to carry them to the end. And the reason why I have the Bengals winning the year after that is because I feel like it's going to take 2 years to get that defense up to par with that offense that Joe Burrow has, and to get them where they need to be. I got the Texans winning the year after that, not just because CJ Stroud will be a seasoned vet at that time and everything, but I do feel like that Texans team will be built good enough to beat anybody in the AFC, just because he's gotten 2 playoff wins in the past 2 years, getting out of that wild card round, just needs to get past the divisional round. And then the Cleveland Browns, here's the reason why I think that they will win. Not only will they be into their new stadium, because we've known that a lot of teams that get brand new stadiums usually have very good success from the years following, but I think that they will be off of that curse that is being on the lake, because I think being on the lakefront is a curse. If you remember that Cleveland Indians team that was on the lakefront, they were the mistake by the lake. They were garbage for so many years. They get a stadium downtown in the very first year, right after they get that new stadium, they make it to the World Series. And then not even 2 years later, they make it again. They lose, but they make it both times. And I feel like if it's not Shedeur Sanders, it's going to be somebody in this next draft that will be the starting guy. And I do believe that Kevin Stefanski will not be the head coach of this Cleveland Browns team, but I do believe we are going to get the next coach that's going to lead us to the promised land either next year or the year after that. And if it's not Shedeur, because I'm either predicting it's either Shedeur or a quarterback from next year's draft, but those are my five Super Bowl champions for the next 5 years. And I'm telling you what, if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl this year, that's one down.
Oh, wow. Oh, that is.
And you've heard it here first. You heard it here first.
Well, now I'm sure you're probably. I'm curious as to what you're going to think when it comes to my division predictions for every team, and especially our playoff, because I will tell you, I think we're going to probably get 4 different division winners, and that's all together for the AFC and NFC. And I think we're also going to get a couple of newcomers in the wild card.
I see the Panthers winning the South this year.
It's interesting because, again, I'm not saying because I mean that division itself is so wonky. I think because Derek Carr retiring, I don't think it's the whole reason of it, but I don't know what Tyler Shough is. I don't know what Spencer Rattler is. So I don't know with as far as New Orleans goes. And I'm not even trying to bag on them, but I don't know. All I know is, I mean, I feel like if Bryce Young, Michael Penix, and Baker Mayfield all get on a hot streak, it's a 3-team race.
It is. It really is. And I do feel like the reason why I chose the Panthers is not only it's because of Bryce Young and how well he's played and if he can continue that into this year, but there was 3 games that I counted and went back and rewatched where it was one play, like that Buccaneers game where that Chuba Hubbard fumble caused them that game. The Kansas City Chiefs game where Xavier Legette dropped the ball on the 5-yard line, cost them that game. And then that one against the Falcons where Adam Thielen, if he would have held on to the ball, they get that first down, they win that game. So that they would have went 7-10 rather than 4 and whatever they did.
But you know what, though? That's okay because, truthfully, they were my best-worst team last year because I knew this team would improve because a lot of that is that because sitting Bryce Young down, it now allowed you to now have to reevaluate. It allowed you to now get a veteran in there. And I think it was very clear because, remember, we did not have the amount of quarterback starts like we did the year before that. There was like over 60 of them. But I think a lot of that reasoning is because it's the NFL. Injuries are accounted for. The other thing is I also do believe that inconsistencies do play a role in that, but that also depends. I mean, look at Bryce Young. Look at Anthony Richardson. Look at some of these other quarterbacks. I mean, those tend to take into effect. That's why you really have to. I mean, this draft was the most roster constructed draft I think we've ever come across in a long time. And so to do that, now you're putting the roster construction into action. So I do believe Carolina, and remember, this is also another thing about the NFL that also surprises us because there sometimes could be a surprise player or a surprise team that actually catches us by surprise. Who knows if Tyler Shough actually is the answer for New Orleans? He very much could be because experience is one thing. Also where you come from, because remember, he backed up Justin Herbert at Oregon before going to Louisville. So there's a part of that does kind of take into a little bit of account. But then how do we know about how Kellen Moore will run his offense as a head coach? That's another thing. So
look for him to trade for a veteran guy. I could see if the Browns really are interested in just going with 2 rookies to start the season with, I could see them trading Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett to the Saints to get them that, either that veteran presence in there or a good caliber quarterback that can start for a few games before you hand over the reins to Tyler Shough.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the idea, right? And that's why a lot of teams, they've gotten experiences up in quarterbacks. They also even have guys that, even if they're still young, they've also possessed a bit of experience themselves. That's why I look at a lot of these quarterback rooms, because it's always good to have an emergency quarterback, always, because you never know what could happen. I mean,
I'm going to give you a sneak peek into tomorrow. I'm just going to tell you my division winners. I'm not going to tell you who the other playoff teams are going to be. Okay. My division winners for the NFC North are the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay, they're winning the North. Okay.
For the NFC East, I've got the Commanders winning that.
Okay.
For the NFC South, I've got the Panthers winning. And for the NFC West, I've got the Rams.
So only 2 of the 4 I kind of have a different take on. 2 of them, but I agree with the Rams, and I also do agree with what was it?
The Vikings?
No. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. I actually have 3. I have a different mind on. But the Rams, you and I were on the same page with that because I do think the 49ers, just to kind of give a little bit of a snippet, but the 49ers have arguably the easiest schedule. And if they don't win 10 games, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And the other thing is I think Seattle, because of the way they finished, I think Mike McDonald's, his scheme is he's going to be more about defense and ground and pound. Because they went and got offensive line, right? And they went in and ended up getting defensive guys, and then they go and get Sam Darnold. All they wanted was a competent quarterback to distribute the ball, right? So, and then you got the Cardinals, who a lot of people have been harping, and I believe it. I think the Cardinals could be that spoiler for most teams in the NFC. I really do think that because if knowing Jonathan Gannon and how he sets that defense up, when they got Will Johnson and they got a couple of other guys sneakily in that draft in their positions, I'm like, I think Arizona low-key could honestly play spoiler and work their way up. Because at the same time, I don't think they'll make a splash, but they can make a competitive argument to get into the last spot. They could.
Yeah.
But I think with the North, it's so hard to predict with them because
it really is. Like it took me going back and forth, but I think the Lions are going to have a down year just because they lost 6 coaches.
I believe that.
And then the Bears, they just upgraded their roster everywhere.
I think the Bears, because I think the Vikings, truthfully,
it all depends on JJ.
It does depend on JJ, but remember, they're not going to be 14-3 this year. They're probably going to have a little bit of a setback. They'll probably get at least 12 wins, maybe even 11, depending on it. But that's going to be a lot harder than people think because then you got to also account for Green Bay. Is Jordan Love going to have a rebound season? Because that's going to be the same exact thing that you look at even with C.J. Stroud having a playoff win, if he's honestly going to have the most productive numbers. We don't know that either. So, yeah, I think 3 of the 4 I have a different mind on, but you and I are on the same page with the Rams.
So for the AFC, the West, I got the Chiefs just because it's hard to bet against them, and I think that they are still going to win their division. It will be a very, very, very tough division that will be. I do have for the AFC South, I've got the Texans winning that one again, just until we can see what we've got from the Titans with Cam Ward and the much better offensive line and everything. And then if Anthony Richardson can have a bounce back season and actually play well with the Colts, I could see the Colts battling out for the top of the division, but it's going to be very close. The AFC East, I'm going to give it to the Buffalo Bills again, just because I know that the Patriots have gotten a lot better and a lot tougher on defense with Mike Vrabel being there. That's what they spent their entire offseason money on, the most cap space in the NFL. They just got nothing but defense and then spent their entire draft on offense pretty much. And then for the AFC North, I've got the Cincinnati Bengals just because they got 3 defensive pieces that they upgraded with in the draft, young guys that could help out this defense. They got 2 or 3 pieces in this offseason on the defensive side of the ball that I feel like are going to work well. And the Bengals would have won the division had they had a better defense last year, just because they were outscoring a lot of their opponents. They just couldn't hold them in games. And there was at least 4 games where I can say that the defense had screwed them over because of it. And They finished 9-8 last year. You had a better defense. You finished like 12-5 or 13-4.
But I think a lot of that is because you had to expect Burrow to put the team on his back.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the reason why that they finished the way that they did. It was a very competitive, probably arguably one of the most productive offenses that we've seen all season. And yet the defense did them no justice. So on that regard, I have 2 of the 4 I'm different-minded on.
The North, right?
The West and yeah, the North.
Yep. I figured you got the Ravens winning.
At the East, yeah, we agree on that. But, however, there actually may be a change within the ranks amongst the 2 and 4 spots because I got to save it for tomorrow because I know I get excited about this, but I do think there are going to be some teams that are going to be shifting up, and you'll be surprised by that tomorrow. Because
you'll be surprised about who I've got making the playoffs tomorrow for each conference as well.
Same as well, because I do believe there are going to be some teams that are going to jump when you least expect it, and there are going to be some drop-off teams. Now,
every year there's always 3 teams that make it that did not make it the year before.
Right. There's always a dark horse. There's always a dark horse team that tends to make the playoffs. And remember, because that could either be the best worst team from last year that then they make the playoffs, which I agree with that. But there also are some teams that had the worst drop-off that now they become playoff teams. And so all of those are true as well. But I do believe there are about 2 to maybe 3 teams. When is it ever going to change? When is it ever going to change for them? Because I just am like, there's a reason why that they continue to be in these spots. There's a reason why they finish last. Them, the Jags.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But saving all that all for tomorrow. But it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun show. We got my really good friend who's gonna be on the show with us. Howell. He loves the Oilers, but he's also one of 2 guys that talk nothing but hockey. He's going to be joining us here tomorrow to talk a lot about the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Edmonton Oilers, and the NHL draft lottery, which is so unpredictable that a 0.3% team got the number 1 overall pick. We'll discuss all that. Yeah, I cannot wait to hear what he has to say about that tomorrow. But we're chasing
the Red Wings the number 1 pick. Come on.
one of these days. If they get lucky, but you know what? I think the lotteries are just a scratch team.
Yeah,
they really are.
I hate that. I like the way the NFL does it.
Yeah. Oh, the NFL will always be king with that. But with Chase and myself, have a great rest of your night, guys. Appreciate all of you guys for dropping on by, and we will see you tomorrow with our special guest here up onto the show. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you tomorrow, guys.